Caitlin Clark has been hurt more in the last month than she was during her entire college career, and that's not a coincidence. What looks like bad luck is actually revealing the ugly truth about what's happening behind closed doors in Indiana. And it's way worse than anyone's talking about. The Fever's franchise player isn't just dealing with physical pain anymore. She's carrying the weight of a broken organization, and her body is starting to give out under pressure that no 23-year-old should have to handle. The timeline tells the whole story, but you have to know where to look. First came the quad injury against New York on May 24th, conveniently right after the Dana Bonner drama started heating up behind the scenes. Then Clark missed over 2 weeks, longer than anyone expected for what was supposed to be a minor strain. She came back for exactly 3 games, before mysteriously developing a groin issue that kept her out against the Sparks. Now she's listed as day-to-day, but insiders are whispering this is about way more than any muscle problem. Think about the timing here. Clark gets hurt right when her supposed veteran leader and mentor figure Dana Bonner starts causing problems in the locker room. While Clark was publicly defending Bonner, talking about how excited she was to learn from her championship experience, Bonner was already plotting her exit strategy. Sources close to the team say Clark felt personally betrayed when she found out Bonner wanted out simply because she got benched. This wasn't just losing a teammate, it was discovering that someone she genuinely respected and looked up to was willing to abandon the team the moment things got tough. The emotional toll hit different than anything Clark experienced at Iowa, where she was surrounded by players who'd run through walls for her. In Indiana, she's learning the harsh reality of professional sports, where loyalty is conditional and veteran leadership can disappear overnight. Multiple team sources describe Clark as visibly frustrated during practices, not just with her own performance, but with the overall dysfunction surrounding the organization. She's starting to realize that talent alone won't fix what's broken in Indiana. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is what the mainstream media won't tell you. Clark's recent injuries aren't just physical reactions to stress. They're strategic moves by a medical staff that's genuinely worried about their franchise player burning out completely. The Fever's medical team has been having serious conversations about load management, but not the kind you normally hear about. They're not just protecting Clark's body, they're protecting her mental health from a pressure situation that's become completely unsustainable. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who's worked with several WNBA teams, recently spoke off the record about the unprecedented pressure facing young superstars in today's league. She didn't mention Clark by name, but her comments were clearly targeted. Athletes in their early 20s aren't equipped to handle being the sole reason for a league's popularity surge, while simultaneously trying to carry a dysfunctional franchise. The physical symptoms, recurring muscle strains, fatigue, minor injuries that linger longer than expected, these are textbook signs of an athlete whose nervous system is in constant fight or flight mode. What makes Clark's situation even more brutal is the ratings dependency. Every time she sits out, WNBA viewership plummets by double digits. The league office is reportedly having panic meetings about what happens if their biggest draw starts missing significant time regularly. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has been in constant communication with Fever ownership, pushing them to do whatever it takes to keep Clark healthy and happy. But that pressure is exactly what's making everything worse. The Bonner situation exposed just how little support Clark actually has within her own organization. When your veteran leader quits on the team because she can't handle coming off the bench, what message does that send to a young superstar who's literally carrying the entire franchise? Clark went from believing she had a championship-caliber supporting cast to realizing she's essentially playing with mercenaries who bolt the moment their personal situations aren't perfect. Now let's talk about what's really happening during this mysterious injury absences. Multiple sources indicate Clark isn't just rehabbing her quad or groin. She's having serious conversations with team leadership about the direction of the franchise. These aren't casual check-ins. they're full-blown summit meetings where everything is on the table. The Fever brass knows they're one major frustration away from losing their superstar, either through trade demand or free agency when her contract situation allows. The financial implications are staggering. Clark's presence alone has increased Fever attendance by over 300% compared to pre-Clark seasons. Merchandise sales, sponsorship deals, and local business revenue all depend on her staying healthy and engaged. But Mike can't fix the fundamental problems that are eating away at her confidence in the organization. Poor roster construction, questionable coaching decisions, and front office moves that prioritize headlines over actual team building. Here's what nobody's saying publicly, but everyone in basketball circles knows. Clark's campus started making quiet inquiries about other organizations. Not trade demands, not public complaints, just casual information gathering about how other franchises operate. Her representatives are doing her due diligence, studying which teams have better support systems, more competent front offices, and cultures that actually prioritize winning over drama. The groin injury that kept her out against Los Angeles wasn't severe enough to warrant missing such an important game under normal circumstances, but these aren't normal circumstances. Team sources suggest Clark needed a mental health break more than a physical one. Watching her team lose while she sat on the bench in street clothes, you could see the frustration in her body language. This isn't the same player who dominated college basketball with pure joy and competitive fire. Veteran players around the league have started reaching out to Clark privately, offering advice about handling organizational dysfunction. Some of these conversations have been eye-opening for someone who's never experienced front office incompetence on this level. When DeWanna and Sue Bird are texting you about staying mentally strong through franchise turmoil, that tells you everything about how the situation is being perceived league-wide. The coaching staff finds themselves in an impossible position. Stephanie White wants to develop a sustainable system that doesn't completely depend on Clark. But every time she experiments with different lineups or reduces Clark's minutes, the criticism becomes overwhelming. The fan base and media pressure for Clark to play heavy minutes directly conflicts with long-term health management. White's caught between keeping her superstar happy and keeping her healthy. What's particularly troubling is how Clark's social media presence has changed. Gone are the enthusiastic posts about team activities and practice highlights. Her recent content feels more obligatory, like someone fulfilling contractual requirements rather than genuinely sharing their basketball journey. Close observers note she's been much more selective about which team events she promotes, which suggests some level of disconnection from the organization's marketing efforts. The ripple effects extend beyond just Clark's individual situation. Young players considering their future destinations are watching how Indiana handles their franchise player. If the Fever can't properly support someone of Clark's caliber, what does that say about their commitment to building a sustainable winning culture? The organization's reputation around the league has taken serious hits, making it harder to attract quality free agents who might otherwise want to play alongside Clark. Behind the scenes, there are growing concerns about Clark's long-term relationship with basketball itself. People close to her describe someone who's starting to question whether professional basketball can provide the same joy she experienced in college. The constant scrutiny, organizational dysfunction, and pressure to single-handedly carry a franchise and league are wearing down someone who just wants to play basketball at the highest level. The medical staff's decision to be extra cautious with these recent injuries reflects their understanding that they're dealing with more than just physical problems. Sports psychologists have been quietly brought in to help Clark develop coping strategies for the unique pressures she faces. These aren't typical athlete mental health sessions. They're specialized interventions designed for someone whose individual success or failure affects an entire league's popularity. Industry insiders expect major changes in Indiana's front office structure before next season, largely driven by the need to convince Clark that the organization is serious about building around her properly. But whether those changes come soon enough to prevent permanent damage to Clark's relationship with the franchise remains the biggest question facing the WNBA. The league's golden goose is showing signs of stress, and nobody knows exactly how to fix a problem this complex. The truth is, Caitlin Clark's recent injuries are symptoms of a much larger disease affecting not just the Indiana Fever, but professional women's basketball as a whole. When your biggest star needs strategic rest from the psychological pressure of carrying an entire sport, that reveals systemic problems that go way deeper than any muscle strain. The question isn't whether Clark will recover from these minor physical issues. It's whether she'll recover from the realization that being the face of women's basketball might cost her the love of the game itself. What happens next will determine not just Clark's future, but the trajectory of the WNBA for years to come. Because if they lose their brightest star to burnout and organizational incompetence, the league might never get another opportunity like this again. The clock is ticking, and every day Clark spends questioning her situation is another day closer to a scenario nobody in women's basketball wants to imagine.